right, so sorry about that. We'll get started right now. So good morning to all of you. Today we're going to actually not talk for that long. I'm going to talk for maybe only 30 minutes or so today, and then you'll have a little bit of extra time to start working on your assignment 105. So assignment 105, I'm going to introduce in just a second, but it's kind of spanning the next several weeks. And it's something that we're going to build on throughout really kind of the last two modules of the class. It'll be an AutoCAD module, and then we'll talk about how do you get from AutoCAD into another program like SketchUp, for example. So we'll kind of be using and chewing on this project going forward for quite a bit. So it's important to get started. It's important to take some time and really think about the design. And as such, I'm giving you a little bit of extra time today so that you can think about it. You can get some sketches done, you can get some preliminary drawings done, and you can work through how do you actually create this design project. So let me go ahead and share my screen this morning. There we go. And you can see that I've gone ahead and I've pulled up assignment 105. And for assignment 105, you're going to be designing a very small cabin. We're looking at the cabin at being less than 1,000 square feet. So when I say small, I really do mean small. I mean, it's not tiny, but it's also pretty much on the small side. So we do have with this cabin, and I recognize that some of you are, of course, landscape design students. Some of you are industrial design students, but I find that this project is a really good way of guiding you through how to use software from a design perspective. So I'm going to give you some freedom to design what it is you want. And then we're going to talk about how do you best represent that idea using the various software pieces that we've been studying. Obviously, we'll spend some time in AutoCAD with this for assignment 105, but then we'll also take it back into Illustrator, and we'll talk about how do you improve your drawing with just a little bit of touch-up in Illustrator. So we'll go through some of that. Those of you that are landscape students, we'll talk a little bit more about how do you do a landscape plan around the building. So I'm extending this beyond just an architectural design, but it is fundamentally starting as an architectural design project. As such, we do have some program. So we have a couple. They have no children, and they're requesting the following for their cabin. They'd like 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. They'd like to have a living space with a fireplace and windows that, quote, capture the site. So it's site specific. They'd like a kitchen that's open to the living space. They'd like a dining space, and we're looking at a total of about 1,000 square feet. Now, when I say 1,000 square feet, does it have to be exactly 1,000 square feet? No. If it's 950 square feet, is that okay? Absolutely. If it's 500 square feet, yeah, it's a little small. If it's 1,500 square feet, yeah, it's a little big. If it's 1,100 square feet, yeah, it's probably okay. The other thing that I'll exempt you from is any exterior space. So decks, patios, outdoor living space, etc. That's all fair game. You're more than welcome to use that and not count it in your square footage. The reason that I'm keeping it about this size is because it's about the right size for the scale that we'll be working on. It'll fit on the drawings correctly. So that's really what we're looking at. Some students asked if it can be 2-story or 3-story for that matter. Yes, it can. That just complicates the drawings a little bit. Nothing wrong with that, and certainly something that you can do. Today, we're going to spend some time evaluating the site.
Will it increase the area?
We're getting to that. We're getting to that. So we do have a specific site for this, and the specific site is in an area of Yosemite Valley called Happy Valley, Happy Isles, excuse me. And it's on, if you've ever hiked to Half Dome, if you're leaving the valley, it's up on the initial leaving the valley toward Half Dome. And we're going to look at this specifically in just a second, so don't worry. So a couple things. One, obviously it's a national park, so no, you would never actually be allowed to build a cabin there. But the reason that I pick it is there's lots of photographs of Yosemite that you can use as backdrops for your collage work later on. So it's a little bit loaded. If this were a real studio where we had funding and whatever, we'd all go take a trip to Yosemite and evaluate the site ourselves. Unfortunately, that's not quite in the cards for a community college setup. So we're going to do it with photos, and we'll spend some time looking at it. Continuing on here, we kind of double up our exercises and our assignment. So while we're working on the exercise, we're really working toward the assignment. So you can see that I've lined things up. So under part 3, we're doing AutoCAD drawings of floor plan. That's going to be during and after exercise 118. That would be today. Then we move on to AutoCAD drawings of elevations during and after. That's exercise 120. Then we have a final assembly collage views that's during and after exercise 121. So you can see that I'm kind of building these up, getting you ready for it. So we'll spend a lot of time in class working on it. It's going to be due a ways out. It's on Monday, 11/21 that it's going to be due. I gave you a little bit of extra time because I know this time of the semester can be hard. So you'll probably be done with it long before that. And of course you can turn it in, but I put the due date out just a little bit. We do have some information today that we're going to go over. This zip file of site information. I'm going to have you download that. And let me right click on it and say save link as. Let's put it in its downloads folder for right now, and we'll let that happen. Remember that it doesn't like to let us download, so we do need to choose to keep it. And there it is, downloading there. I'm going to go ahead and show it in its folder. We'll right click on it and we'll extract all here. And you see that inside that folder, there's not really too much. There is what is called a KMZ file, and there's also a DWG file that contains the topography of the site. And I've given you that just as a background. Some people will use this more extensively. We'll talk about it. Some other people will just pretend the site is flat, and that's okay. It depends on your skill level and your kind of comfort level with working with these programs. So how do we work with this KMZ file? Well, this KMZ file is designed to work around Google Earth. So if we open a new tab on any browser, we can go to earth.google.com. And we'll load up Google Earth here. There we are. And in Google Earth, we can load that KMZ file. So if I click on the little 3 lines in the top left corner here, we can go down into projects and we can click on this open. And you'll see that one of the options is to open a KML file from your computer. So let's go into our, sorry, it was in downloads here. And there it is. We'll go ahead and open it. And it will spin us around and zoom us in to the site itself. So when we first zoom in here, we're not seeing too much. Let me back up a bit. I'll scroll the mouse out a little bit. And really to start to see this better, we want to look at it in 3D. And when we slip it over into 3D, you can start to see a lot more about our building site. So we are down in the valley. If you've been to Yosemite before, this is close by to Curry Village, which is kind of the main valley, tourist area. If we're looking around a little bit at our general landmarks, this would be Half Dome over here. The trail to Half Dome goes up this canyon, goes up and around, back up over in here, and then goes up these 2 little humps right there, and then right there. The cables are strung. Let's see if we can see them in here. But the cables are strung kind of right along that line to get up to Half Dome. I don't know, maybe some of you have hiked Half Dome before. Our building site is right down here. It's relatively flat. There's a little bit of hilliness to it. You can see that there's the nature center is nearby, etc. There is a creek that flows through here. We can see little bits of it, a little bit of a bridge coming in there. So that's coming down right through there. And our building site is in this general vicinity. So we're not overly worried with this about having like a garage and parking and all that stuff. We're talking about just the cabin itself. So we'll assume that you walk into this particular cabin. If we orient ourselves a little bit, you can see that there's some pretty nice views looking across the canyon. If we get over here and we start to kind of look up there, right? And this is part of doing this 3D view, is that we get a sense for what's happening in this area. So I would encourage you to look this up and spend some time kind of orienting yourself to this particular site. If you, sorry, I got myself up on top of the ridge. right? We can do Google image search for things like Curry Village or Half Dome or Yosemite Meadow to give you kind of a sense of what this looks like. So for example, I could do an images. Can't type this morning. Those are all tent cabins. Let's do, how about, let's do Yosemite Meadow. Right, so you can get kind of a sense for what Yosemite looks like, the meadows look like, etc. A lot of people will use images like this with the waterfall in the background to kind of give themselves the right background context when they're doing the collage work. It's not exactly our site, but it's close enough for a lot of the things that we're working on. Okay, so these are all examples. You can do Google searches just to kind of get a sense for what this looks like and what it's going to feel like. So when it comes to our building, right, what I want you to do is, first off today, this is exercise 118. I want you to spend some time doing a site evaluation. And that's where you actually do spend some time zooming around Google Earth, looking. This is a virtual site evaluation. It's not something that we really get to do in person, unfortunately. Right? But spend some time and take a look and spin that around. Make sure that you can, load that in and have a look at our building site. Next up, right, we want to open up that DWG file that's contained so that we can see what the topography looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and do that as well. So let me open up my folder where I had it here. And I'm going to double click on this assignment 205. Oops, this is opening in the architecture version. I'm going to try to stay consistent with the non-architecture version. So let me go ahead and open AutoCAD directly here. And then we'll open it from within AutoCAD. Sorry about that. Maybe. Apparently wants to run nice and slow for me too. All right, I am going to attempt to close the AutoCAD architecture version here and just have the regular AutoCAD. I want to just stay consistent here. So let me try opening the regular AutoCAD. That's my mistake. All right, now with AutoCAD open, I'm going to go ahead to this little folder icon. This is going to open. So let's go into, I had it in my downloads folder. So let's see where that would be here. And there's the topography for assignment 105. I'm going to go ahead and open it. This will pop up because I actually generated the topography in Rhino. So just continue and open. And so this piece of terrain here is set up with north being straight up. And if we jump back into our orientation with Google Earth, let me try to orient you here as well. So we're looking at the site with north being straight up. So we're looking at it roughly like this, if it were in 3D, where the tall parts are on this end and we're sloping away from us. So the same thing happens here. The tallest points are up on this side and this corner, and they're generally sloping down. This set of loops is the river that goes through. So most people end up building somewhere over in here on the flat part. Now this site is absolutely massive. So when we start talking about 1,000 square feet, right, we're talking about a pretty small building. And so I'm going to, just do some basic layouts just so you can kind of see it here. I'll use the polyline tool, and I'm going to come down with the polyline tool, and I'm going to start to work through some of my areas. Now, different people work differently when it comes to designing. And some people believe that you need like to mass out certain areas and then you figure out how they assemble together. That's fine. Other people conceive of the design as a whole. Generally, I conceive of it as a whole, and I don't worry about the individual rooms as much, and I start to work on the perimeter and what I want it to look like. But for some people, it may be helpful to actually start to understand the basics. So, for example, a 10 by 10 square would be 100 square feet. So you'd have 10 by 10 squares, or for example, a 10 by 15 or a 12 by 12 would be almost 150 square feet. So let's do add 12 feet, 12 feet. Remember, I'm using those relative coordinates for myself, and that's kind of like a bedroom. And so I could copy that, and that would be, a second bedroom. Better yet, let's split them apart, and let's add a bathroom in between. So let's put 6 feet in between, and now we can imagine there being a bathroom in between these two. And then maybe this bathroom is, let's go maybe 8 feet there. Maybe it's like that. Let me repeat my line. By the way, if you in AutoCAD, if you want to repeat a command, you can just right click. So I'm just kind of laying out, okay, there's 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. Now I would need a living room. And so let's say, go over here by maybe, let's include a kitchen too. So let's go 30 feet over here. Let's go 20 feet up over here. And we can come back across. And I'm kind of creating this basic L for right now. Now, if you want to understand how many square feet something is, so I've kind of laid out this perimeter, there is a measure tool that's listed up here in our top home tool ribbon. If I were to click this down arrow, you can see that I can choose area. And so this says it's going to measure the area, right? And I could snap to each of these corners. Make sure I actually get the corner there. And I can come down like that, and I'll hit enter. And then down here, it's going to tell me that that's 960 square feet. So it's pretty close to what I was after in terms of overall square footage. And again, that was just kind of an approximation for me as I start to lay this out. Now, just like we did with the last assignment, or the last exercise, we're gonna have to add wall thicknesses to it. So that's where the offset comes in. So offset 6 inches, right? And I could start offsetting these walls.
Isn't the difference between the inner walls and the outer walls?
In terms of square footage, yeah, I just added a little bit of square footage. Yes, you're correct. But I was at 960, so I'm close enough to be able to.
No, I mean, you did all the walls the same.
Oh, I did them all at 6 inches. Yes, 6 inches is very generic. I mean, yes, absolutely. Walls have different thicknesses. Interior walls, if you wanted to do them at 4 inches, that would be fine. What's actually interesting about walls is depending on how you create a wall, what it's made up of, the thickness is never actually 6 inches. And a lot of times in architecture, we just generically call it 6 inches and say, hey, that's fine. When you start to fine tune a project, you want to understand what that wall makeup really is, because a wall typically, even if it's made with a 2x6, that would be 5.5 inches, but you've got a 1/2 inch of interior sheetrock, so that would get you to 6 inches. You've got a 1/2 inch of shear structural on the outside, that should get you to 6.5 minimum, but then you might have siding. So at some point your wall gets thicker than that anyway. So 6 is kind of a generic term. Since this is not a construction class and it's not a working drawings class, I'm happy if you draw it at 6 inches or 4 inches, that works for me. If you want the interiors to be thinner, you can absolutely do that. I'm just staying consistent to make life easy, but you're entirely correct. So let me do another offset here of 6 inches for this one, like that. And then I need to spend some time cleaning this up. So you can see that I've got overlapping lines. I've got things that need to be trimmed. So this is where trim would come in. So I can go to trim and we'd start coming through and trimming out where these things intersect with each other. Right, I've got a little bit of an overlap right there. I'm going to have to come back and fix that. Trim this out. So you can see how I'm kind of working my way through it. Now, part of the reason I wanted to show you this is because if I were to zoom out, you can see how small the building really is in the context of the site. So the site is very, very big. The building is very, very small. So I just want to make sure that you know that. Now, what about these ends here where they don't connect? We can, of course, connect them. So I could take this line, click the grip, stretch it out till it matches up with that end. And I could click on this one and stretch that one until it matches that one, etc. For me, that's a lot of work. So I use kind of a little trick in my workflow, and I'll share it with you. It doesn't work for everybody, but it's something that's worth experimenting with. There is a tool called a fillet. And what a fillet does is it's supposed to take two lines, like those two, and it's supposed to make them meet up with a rounded corner. So if I did a fillet, generally the radius, I'm going to exaggerate this for right now just so you can see it. It would take this line and it would arc it and match it up with that line. That was a radius of 3 feet, right, to make those two match together. We can cheat the system a bit, so to speak, and say, let's do a fillet with a radius of 0. So I'll type R for radius. I'll type 0 for my radius. And then instead of having these come together with an arc, they'll actually come together in space with a straight line. So it's a perfect opportunity right here to connect those two together. So once again, that's a fillet command, F-I-L-L-E-T. And my radius, instead of having a radius, is going to be set to 0. That'll make a sharp corner. And then I can just click on these two pieces and have them connect together at 90 degrees. It's a trick I use a lot, therefore I wanted to show it to you. Okay, so I managed to make this have its wall thickness. There are a few places, and if you look carefully, and you might not be able to see this over Zoom, I have some overlaps. So this line here is overlapped by this line. So in reality, I should fix those. And I should move those down like that, just so I don't have those overlaps. It's just a little bit cleaner. I also have an overlap down here. You might be able to see it there. So we'll shorten that one up to get rid of that overlap there as well. Now, just like we did in our last class, we do need to add doors, windows, and that sort of thing. What we're concentrating on today is actually starting to develop a floor plan. What does this look like? So I have 2 bedrooms here. I have a bathroom here. Obviously, I need doors into those 2 rooms. So maybe I'm going to come in here. Let's go at 4 inches away from this wall. And we'll drop that in. Remember, that was just using my smart tracking. So I hover over this corner. I move the mouse to the right. I type 4 inches. And now I've created that line right there. And then I could offset this. So let's go to offset. My distance would be 3 feet this time. And we can offset, whoops. I did not. It doesn't want to do it. How nice is that? It'll do it on that one. I want to do it on this one. Actually, that's a little bit close there anyway. Let me instead of doing 3 feet, let me go back to like 32 inches. It'll look a little bit better here. There we go. Why is this one not? Oh, now it's working, of course. Okay, and then I would trim those out. So I'd type in trim, and we'd get rid of those 2 lines, and we get rid of those 2 lines, and suddenly I have the openings for that. The bathroom line here, I could do the same thing. Right, I could come down here by 4 inches. Oops. Try that one more time. See, even I make mistakes. 4 inches. I can come over to right there. And then I could offset again. Bathroom door is typically a little bit smaller. Let's do a 28-inch door. And again, these are not magic numbers. So if you choose to do it a 32-inch door, you choose to do a 3-foot door, it doesn't really matter. Right? We're looking at approximations here. So in this context, I'm starting to create that shape. Now, maybe I need an entry, or I want to create some kind of an entry porch or something like that. Well, maybe I need to modify this shape. Maybe I need to, add. Let me turn on my midpoint snap here. Maybe I need to have this wall come in by 5 feet. And I need to come up to there. And maybe that means that this actually gets a longer. So we come over by 2 feet there. I'm just evolving my design. Right? So maybe this now gets offset. There. There. And then maybe I'm trimming off this other bit. But maybe it stays as a little porch. So I add just a single line around the outside. And in that scenario, then these go away. So again, I'm evolving the design as I'm going, and there's nothing wrong with that. At any point, I can come back to my measure command and I can double check my square footage. So I can say, let's check what this is now. And there I am at 1,051 square feet. So I'm a little bit over. So maybe I move this line here over a little bit more.
I don't see where it's telling you that.
Oh, okay, I'll do it again, and that way you can see it. Let's move it over by 2 feet there. Okay, so when I click on
you can measure without the wall, so it will be less.
Yeah, correct. So we can measure inside or outside. They're depending. we can go off on tangents on these kinds of things. So technically speaking, it depends on what jurisdiction you're in, who's the authority as to how they count square feet. Sometimes it's interior square footage, where it's where can you set your foot, inside the building. Sometimes it's, the perimeter of the building counts as a square feet. I know, for example, up in Tahoe, they've actually separated out building square footage and deck square footage. Building square footage has to do with the footprint. So all the way around the outside, even if you can't step on it, it counts. But their decks have a formula that calculates square footage based on how high they are off the ground. So if it's taller off the ground, you can have a bigger deck and it counts as less square foot. So it's really baffling, but that's the way that jurisdictions work. So we're doing it generically. If you want to count it from the outside building in, that's fine. If you want to count the inside square feet, that's fine. We're still in the same ballpark. But I like to point that out because it's entirely based on jurisdiction. So when I'm using this area tool, I'm working it and I'm coming over here. Okay, so it's highlighted in green. When I press enter, it's shown in 2 places. It's shown down in my command line, right over here, where it says 1,026 square feet. It also shows over by my cursor and it says area. By the way, the first area is in square inches. We're obviously looking at square feet. So there it is, 1,026.75 square feet. So it's shown in 2 places. So again, this is close. This is close. And as I start to continue to manipulate it, we'll get to whatever feels right. So similarly, I would go to fillet. Again, my radius is set to 0, and that would allow me to connect those 2 together like that. I could repeat it and connect this and this together. I could repeat it and connect that and that. I could repeat it and connect this and this. I could repeat it and connect that and that. I could repeat it and I could connect this and this. So you're getting the idea in terms of how I'm starting to establish this floor plan. Okay, so I'm generally thinking, I'm thinking large living area. This is some kind of a, a kitchen alcove or something. I don't know. I'm working through it. The purpose of today is to spend time developing the floor plan. Do you have to have all the furniture put in? Absolutely not. We're going to get to that next class. We'll talk about how do you bring in blocks and use block references, etc., to kind of accentuate your floor plan, give yourself a little bit more detail, etc. So it's not a requirement right now to add, furniture in. You could draw kitchen cabinets if you wanted to. You can mass out things and think about how big they are. I would be thinking your bedrooms should be somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 feet by 12 feet. That feels about right. Your bathroom, absolute minimum size for a bathroom would be 5 feet by 8 feet. It would be nice to be larger than that. And then from there, it's really a matter of starting to figure out how this building comes together. What does it look like? Where do the windows go? So if by the end of today, you could resolve the floor plan, add some windows, add some doors, I'd be pretty happy. Make sure when you're done today that you're saving this file. So I'm going to click on the save disk icon. This one right here. Oh, let me do a save as because I haven't renamed it yet. And instead of being saved as the topography, let's go to my OneDrive and let's go into my folder for today. And so this is assignment 105, and this would be the fall of 2022, and I'll go ahead and click on save. So I want to make sure I'm saving the AutoCAD file, because we're going to keep using this file over and over again. We're going to evolve it. So next class, when you come in, we're going to be talking about this same file again. So that being said, we're going to take this and make a print so that we can post it to Canvas. So we need to save the AutoCAD file first. That's the most important thing. And then we'll click on the print icon. And just like we did last class in the print icon, we'll choose publish to web JPEG. We can use the default paper size. And chances are all of this is set fine. We can go ahead and say okay, and it will create a JPEG for us. So I would put that in my folder again. And so this was perfect. I'll go ahead and click on save, and it'll make that JPEG. That would be what I would turn in to Canvas. Let's go back and review and make sure that I covered everything that I intended to cover here. There we go. And like I said, we're working on that. We're going to continue working this. Today's 118. We'll work on it 119, 120, and 121. So we're going to keep kind of plugging away at this over the next couple weeks. Okay. So I'm going to let you guys get to work. Again, I said this was going to be a little bit shorter. That's to give you extra time to work on this floor plan and get it resolved. The more you work on it, the better resolved this is going to be, the more prepared you're going to be going into the next set. We will continue working on the floor plan. We'll enhance it with, furniture and details, line weights, etc., starting next class. And then the following class, we'll start building elevations. So we are definitely building upon this. Okay. So all that being said, I'm going to let you guys go for right now. We do have the balance of our check-ins. So if you didn't come on Monday, please make sure you check in today with any questions that you might have.